And welcome to Nats Chat for Tuesday, April 30th, 2024. Along with MASNsports.com Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. And for the first time since a 7-6 win at the Cincinnati Reds, all the way back on March 30th, the Nats are 500. As for the first time since September 2019, the Nats have authored a 4-game sweep of a regular season series. Monday evening, a 7-2 win at the Marlins to complete a 4-game sweep. The Nats for this regular season are back at 500, 14-14. The Marlins, they for this regular season now are a major league worst 6-24. If you would like to sponsor the Nats Chat podcast, email Tim Shovers at natschatpodcast@gmail.com. You can sponsor the show for a particular game or series or more. So the Nats in recent seasons had been bullied by the Marlins. We had talked about this. Why this was the case is still hard to say, but the Nats over the previous 2 regular seasons went just 6-26 against the Marlins. Let that sink in, 6-26. But the Nats in this 2024 regular season campaign now are 4-0 against the Marlins. Mark, the Nats in this series did the bullying to the Marlins.
And it's nice to see for a change, isn't it, Al, for them to clearly be the superior team and to feel like, most of those games were actually competitive at some point along the way. They may have ended up a little lopsided, but most of them were competitive along the way. And I'll be honest, every single one of them, even the, 7-0, once they started to come back from that one, you just felt like they're going to find a way to win this. Like they are the better team and they are the aggressive team that's forcing the issue. What I loved about this series, the way they just went after them, running the bases, putting the bat on the ball, making all the plays in the field, and taking full advantage of a Marlins team that, I'll be honest, 1 month in, they look defeated. They look like they're done already, like they're counting down the days, and there's a long, long way to go. So all the credit to the Nationals for taking advantage of that and clearly defeating an inferior team. They're going to get to play them another, 9 times this year. You hope they enjoy some more success against them because they've earned it after what happened the last couple of years against Miami.
There are a lot of ways to judge a rebuild, right? And certainly how a rebuilding team does against good teams matters and is telling. But I also think how a rebuilding team does against really bad teams can be telling. Do you take care of business? Do you push the bad team around? And the Nats did that in this series. This was really a convincing 4-game sweep that was put together here by the Nats. So the Nats on Monday evening, 7 runs on 7 hits and 4 walks. The 7 hits were made up of a home run, 3 doubles, and 3 singles. The Nats also worked 4 walks and went 4 for 5 on stolen bases. There is no overstating the significance of the running game for the Nats right now. It really is something. The Nats in this game scored 2 runs in the top of the 3rd, a run in the top of the 5th, and 4 runs in the top of the 7th. C.J. Abrams, he on Monday evening is your national starting shortstop and number 1 batter, 1 for 3 with a 2-run homer and 2 walks, and he had a stolen base. Abrams in the Nats 2-run third, a 2-out, 2-run homer to right field for a 2-0 Nats lead. The home run, his team leading 7th home run this regular season. The 2 walks, the Nats 1-run 5th, a 2-out walk, and to steal a second base, and Abrams in the Nats 4-run 7th through a 1-out walk. But you on X posted a very interesting and at this point telling nugget regarding Abrams and him having 7 home runs by now.
So the players in Nationals history with 7 homers by the end of April is a very short list. Ryan Zimmerman hit 11 of them in 2017. That was his big bounce back year, like career saving year. He went to the All-Star game again. So he did it that year. And then Bryce Harper actually did it 4 times, 8 or more in each of them. And then it's C.J. Abrams with 7. Nobody else in team history has hit 7 home runs by the end of April. And think about some of the other names that we're talking about who have played for this team. Alfonso Soriano, not during the year that he hit 46. Juan Soto never did it. Trey Turner, take your pick. So there's a lot of accolades to go C.J. Abrams' way. Let's acknowledge that home runs are a big part of his game right now. There's a long way to go, and to suggest that he's going to keep up that pace forever, maybe a little bit premature, but he's on pace to hit more than 40 homers this year. And that's a remarkable thing when you consider physically what he looks like and the kind of player that you thought he was coming into this, I knew he could hit some home runs. I thought maybe he's a 20, 25 homer guy. Maybe in a great year he gets up to 30. Well, he's setting the stage right now for even more than that, and truly playing like a superstar shortstop that deserves all the attention he can get from around the baseball world right now.
He's playing like an all-star. He's playing like a Silver Slugger recipient, and he has done this, I feel like, in a very steady Eddie type way this season. It's not like he got super hot and then cooled off and then got hot again. He has just been this consistent presence. It feels like in every game he does something. He never goes too long without doing something. And it's been a very representative season that he's had. I mean, his OPS for the regular season is 1,011. And that, I feel like, has been spread out over the 25 games in which he has played. It's not like something that he's sort of it's not a situation where he is fattened up on his OPS thanks to like a few good games, a few good weeks.
Right. I mean, think about Nick Senzel has done so much just in the last week to salvage his numbers. And, even going back in the day, Kyle Schwarber, so much of it was over one crazy stretch. You're right. This has been consistent. And I also, the fact that he's doing it in so many different ways. He's hit home runs throughout the month, but he's singled, he's doubled, he's stealing bases, he's playing really good defense. He's kind of doing it all throughout. There has, maybe been one or two games I can think of where you said, boy, CJ just didn't have a good game tonight. For the most part, he's doing something to contribute to this team. And we said it before, but like as he goes, so goes the team. I don't think it's wrong to think in those terms. When he's at the top of the order and causing damage, whether it's driving himself in or whether it's getting on base and wreaking havoc on the bases, he's doing it all. And I mean, how about the scoring on the wild pitch in this game? I mean, this is a ball that barely got away from the catcher, and he scored because he didn't hesitate for a second. He got a great jump on it, a great read of it, and scored. All that kind of stuff is what he's doing. It's not just one aspect of the game. He's doing it all right now, and it is a lot of fun to watch. I mean, a long way to go, but he would be in a very small class of players in Nationals history who have the complete game that he does. Bryce Harper hit tons of home runs when he was young, stole bases and all that. Juan Soto could hit like crazy, but we know defensively and base running wasn't really his thing. Trey Turner could do a lot of different things as well. I mean, CJ Abrams, when it's all said and done, could be right up there with anybody in terms of complete package as a player in so many different ways that he can help you win.
He is a five-tool player. And, it's funny you mentioned Juan Soto. Here's the truth. Abrams on his own could make the Nats the winner of the Juan Soto trade, to say nothing of James Wood and Mackenzie Gore and Robert Hassel III and Jarlin Susana. Abrams alone could make the Nats the winner of that trade. I still think you have to be careful with declaring a true winner in that trade. But I think what you say is right now, if you're a Nats fan, you don't undo that trade. Like right now, you're just fine with that trade having happened. And it says something. I mean, it's not like Soto has been some wretched player since the Nats traded him. Now, he's been on multiple teams, but he has been a productive player, a very productive player. But if Abrams is what we think he just may be, he's younger than Soto. If Abrams is blossoming into a superstar, he by himself could end up making this trade a victory for the Nats, to say nothing of all the other players who the Nats got in that trade.
That is a wild statement there by you, Al Galdi. I'm not saying you're going to be proven wrong. I'll just say I think everyone will feel a lot better if CJ Abrams becomes a superstar and Mackenzie Gore, James Wood, Robert Hassel, Jarlin Susana, at least a couple of those guys also become good players. That'll really make it a win. 1-for-1, I don't know, just because of who he was and what they gave up, I feel like psychologically you need to have more than one star player come out of that. I get what you're saying, but I feel like you truly know you won that trade when multiple players you received turn into great players. But CJ Abrams alone stacks up pretty favorably right now with Juan Soto, who, like you said, is off to a great start. They love him in New York. He's done nothing wrong for them.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, too, is you're paying Abrams nothing. So he can be one of right. But for you have a few years on this. I mean, there's a conversation to be had here of the Nats aggressively pursuing a long-term extension with Abrams. Although you could argue it's already too late. This is the problem with these guys when you don't lock them up before they blossom. Once they blossom, it in many respects is too late. But for now, you're paying the guy peanuts and he's playing like a superstar. And if this is who he is, and that's an if, right? But if this is who he is, that's an extreme bargain. And that's the kind of thing that can carry you through for a few seasons. So we'll see.
Yeah, there is a conversation to be had. People are already talking about it, as they should. We talked about it this spring. Um, I did feel like if I'm the Nationals, I was going to go all in and make him some kind of offer that you hope he could take right now before he turns into even more. We looked at the comparison of Bobby Witt Jr. in Kansas City, who had very similar numbers after his first full season with them, then had a big year and then just got a $300 million extension from Kansas City. If Abrams does this all year long, that's what he's going to be looking at next winter. Doesn't mean they couldn't get that done, but the price tag is only going to go way up the longer this goes on.
Yeah, and that's why this past offseason, I thought there was way too much focus on the Nats not spending on external free agents and way too little focus on the Nats not signing an Abrams or a Josiah Gray, let's say, to one of these contract extensions that are team friendly, that are compelling to the player, that eat up the arbitration seasons and maybe some free agent seasons. And I think it may already be too late with Abrams. We'll see. But like, if this is who he is, the motivation on his end to get one of these deals done goes down, and you start playing the Juan Soto game of you have to overpay, you have to make this Godfather type offer to get the guy. So we're getting way ahead of where we are, but it is worth considering here. And that's part of the job of Mike Rizzo. You have to be ahead of where you are. You have to be thinking beyond the present. You have to be looking toward the future. So it is an interesting circumstance. If Abrams is becoming this superstar player, what you do, where you are contractually with the guy.
As always, though, we have to remind people this isn't a one-way street. We don't know what, if anything, they have offered him at this point. I'd be very surprised if they hadn't at least broached the subject with him and his representatives. Obviously, nothing has happened yet that we're aware of, but it is a two-way street, as always. It's not fair just to say, well, boy, why haven't the Nats locked this guy up yet? Maybe they have tried, for all we know, and maybe he's just not up for that at this point. You'd love to think there's a number right now that could get him to do it. And not being a Boras client, you're always hoping that maybe there's a better chance there. But for all we know, they've made him a big time offer, and he said no at this point.
Well, I hope they have, because I think that would make a whole lot of sense and prevent the dance that this team has had to dance way too often. So Abrams continues to do well. The Nats had 3 doubles on Monday evening. They came from Nick Senzel, Joey Meneses, and Alex Call. Nick Senzel as the Nats starting designated hitter and number 2 batter, 1 for 3 with a double, an intentional walk, and a hit by pitch. Senzel in the top of the third, a 2-out full count double off the top of the left center field wall, despite having been down to the count at 1.12. Joey Meneses, he is the Nats starting first baseman and number 4 batter, 1 for 4 with an RBI ground rule double. Meneses in the Nats 4-run 7th, a 2-out RBI ground rule double off the left center field warning track for a 6-2 Nats lead, despite having been down at 1.02. And Alex Call, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 8 batter, 1 for 4 with a double. Call in the Nats 2-run third, a 1-out opposite field hustle double to right center field. So Alex Call, for a second consecutive game, impactful to at least some extent. And this rise of Nick Senzel continues off the 2-homer game on Sunday. Marlins are bad, so you saw some guys in this series who aren't necessarily household names inflict some damage. But Senzel now, all of a sudden, you look up, he has a slugging percentage for the regular season of .641, and he's become this like offensive force for the Nats in just a few days.
I thought he got that one again in this game, and most parts it probably would have been out. Marlins Park, as we know, it's a terrible hitter's park to get it out, especially to the gaps like that. Boy, what a revelation he has been here in the last week. Now, I mean, it's too soon to declare anything with him. We just haven't seen enough of him. But there's a pedigree there. There's a reason he was drafted number 2 in the country several years back by the Reds. He just has never been able to put it all together, both because of his performance and because of injuries. I don't think all of a sudden he's part of this team's long-term vision. You wouldn't expect that to be the case, but it doesn't mean he can't play his way into the conversation. And good for him for taking advantage of the situation here after missing some time and even missing a couple games when he was sick earlier in the week to just tear the cover off the ball. And good for him for doing that. This is a team that needs more power. I don't know that we expected Nick Senzel would be supplying that power, but right now they are happily taking it.
There's also this from this game on Monday evening and this series. So Jacob Young was a terror for the Marlins in this series. He terrorized Miami in this series. Young on Monday evening as the Nats starting center fielder and number 9 batter, 1 for 4 with a single. He went 2 for 2 on stolen bases. Young in the Nats 1-run fifth, a 2-out opposite field single to right center field, a steal of second base, and a steal of third base. Young in this game scored 2 runs. He in the series totaled 9 runs and 6 stolen bases. And this account on X that puts out all kinds of stats, OptaStats, put out the following. Jacob Young is the first player to have at least 9 runs and at least 6 stolen bases in a single regular season series since the immortal Bob Bescher of the Cincinnati Reds in June 1911. It had been nearly 113 years since someone did what Jacob Young just did at the Miami Marlins. Go figure.
Are we sure it was the Cincinnati Reds and not the Red Legs or the Red Stockings or whatever they used to be called back in the day? I mean, that's a long time ago. Now, the 4-game series helps with this a little bit. You don't have as many of those, but man, you score 9 runs, you're getting on base a lot, and you're putting yourself in position to do a lot of great stuff. And he is still perfect in the major leagues on stolen bases. There was a brief moment in this game when it looked like he had finally been thrown out, and it turns out it was ball 4 to the batter. Otherwise, he might have been out. Again, like Senzel, we don't think of Jacob Young as a big part of the long-term puzzle here. We certainly know who in their perfect world is going to be starting in their outfield here in the near future. But that doesn't mean he can't play his way into the conversation. And what he's doing right now with this opportunity, I think, is absolutely saying to club officials, hey, don't forget about me. I've got a particular skill set here that not a lot of guys have, and that can cause a lot of havoc and damage. I mean, think about the way this team, the identity this team is starting to develop. CJ Abrams is first on that list, but Jacob Young is close by in his ability to play great defense, run the bases really well, and just make things happen with his speed and athleticism. If you don't hit home runs, and we know they're not really built to do that, then you have to find another way to do it. And they have built this identity here over the first month of the season. And I think Jacob Young's a big part of that.
There have been fast Nationals players before. We know that, right? But has there ever been a Nats position player whose primary strength has been speed, has been the stolen base, the way it is for Jacob Young? Like Trey Turner was fast, but he brought other things to the table, right? Batting, defense. It's not like Young is incompetent when it comes to batting and defense, but the speed clearly is the thing. The speed is the difference maker with him. The speed is what really brings the value. And that's such a unique player in modern MLB. Maybe that's going to change now, with the way that the stolen bases changed with the bigger bags and the new pickoff rules. But it really is a unique circumstance, I feel like, with Jacob Young. The Nats haven't had many players like this, players for whom the speed really leads the way more than anything.
Right. There have been guys that they hoped could do that sort of thing. Think of all the leadoff hitting center fielders over the years they've trotted out there. Oh, this guy's got great athleticism and, he's going to be a difference maker. And none of them could actually do it on any kind of consistent basis. So I think what stands out about Young is it's not just that he's fast, but he's good at maximizing that skill. And, Trey Turner, he got on base. Yeah, you're worried about him running, or he could beat out an infield single, all that kind of stuff. But I don't think he really went to the plate thinking I'm going to use my legs to get on base. How often did he try to lay down a bunt and beat out? Every once in a while, but I don't feel like it was that often that he did it. Whereas Jacob Young, I think, goes up there and says, if I just put the bat on the ball, and that can be a bunt, that can be a ground ball, whatever it is, I can get on base, and then I can do more once I get on. And so I think it's a mindset more than anything. He's got the skill, obviously, but he's also got a mindset that says, I'm going to use this tool that I have to the best of my ability to make a difference. And you're right, there aren't many guys who've both had the skill, but also the ability to then put it into practice and actually use it to their advantage the way that he does.
And the thing is, when you're a really good hitter, a really highly touted hitter, you almost aren't using your speed like you could because the focus is on the batting. You're not going to lay down bunts. You're trying to hit for power, etc. With Young, you're a 7th round pick. you know the layout organizationally in terms of all these outfielders in the minors who are on the rise. And so you're just kind of here to do what you can do. And so why the heck not try to maximize your speed in every way possible? And it's been a lot of fun to watch him here these last few weeks. Well, Jake Irvin was the Nats starting pitcher for this 7-2 win at the Marlins on Monday evening. He allowed 2 runs in 6 innings, so a good outing for Jake Irvin. He gave up just 4 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 2 singles. He issued no walks. He did record just 3 strikeouts, but he threw a lot of strikes, 84 pitches, 59 strikes versus just 25 balls. So the 2 runs that Irvin allowed came on a 2-out, 2-run homer by Jazz Chisholm Jr. to center field in the bottom of the 6th to cut the Nats lead to 3-2. The homer went 414 feet per Statcast. But Irvin was coming off a bad outing. That 11-2 Nats loss to the Los Angeles Dodgers at Nationals Park last Wednesday evening. Irvin in that game, 6 runs in 4 2/3 innings. He in that game gave up 12 hits, which were comprised of 5 doubles and 7 singles. He got hit hard in that game, but Irvin on Monday evening was back to being good. And you look at what he's done in this regular season now, 6 starts, ERA of 4.28, whip of 1.19. The ERA and whip are skewed a bit by the blow-up start against the Dodgers, but really save for that game, he has been a good pitcher, and he on Monday evening was back to being a good pitcher.
Well, I'm counting 3 of his 6 starts that have been excellent, not just good, but excellent. And that's the game in Oakland was outstanding. The game at Dodger Stadium was outstanding. And I'm putting this one in that category as well. The 2 runs, he had the shutout going and gave up the 2-run homer and probably could have come back for another inning. But I think the long layoff, that's when the Nats had a long inning going. And because he had topped 100 pitches last time out, I think they probably purposely went into this one saying, we're going to keep the pitch count down. So that's 3 starts of his last 4 that I would call excellent. And what do they have in common? Strike throwing. Working fast, throwing strikes, getting quick outs, not messing around, and being very aggressive. And I think that's who he can be at this point. I think we're seeing that he has that ability. Now, it helps when you're facing the A's and the Marlins, but he also did it to the Dodgers, at least the first time facing them. And the more you see it from him, the more you say, okay, this is in there. He has this ability and he can do it not just randomly, but, consistently 3 out of 4 times now. That makes you say there's something there. This guy can be maybe something more than we thought he was going to be when he first came up.
Did a really good job in this game on Monday evening, and the Nats bullpen in this game was perfect. 2 Nats relievers combined for 3 perfect innings. Dylan Floro, 2 perfect innings, but not just that, 2 perfect innings on a mere 16 pitches. This is what the Nats need more of. Effective outings from relievers, economically effective outings from relievers. Floro tossed a perfect bottom of the 7th on just 6 pitches, and he tossed a perfect bottom of the 8th on just 10 pitches. I wonder if Davey Martinez was at all tempted to have Floro pitch the 9th, but Matt Barnes pitched the 9th, and he tossed a perfect bottom of the 9th. But it was a pleasure to watch Floro and Barnes do as they did in this game.
Yeah, because they left nothing to chance. You knew this one was in the bag at that point. Dylan Floro's now got an 0.64 ERA, and I do wonder. We've seen Jordan Weems struggle at times. We've seen Derek Law struggle at times, although he was really good the other day, also in multiple innings. I wonder if Floro's going to work his way up into like a 7th inning role here. I think that's what they signed him for initially. This is a guy who has pitched late in games throughout most of his career and been pretty effective at it. And he doesn't have the stuff that some of those other guys do, but you can't deny that he's been very effective. And if you can be efficient like that as well and potentially give multiple innings, I'll be real interested to see if there comes a point here when they have a 1-run lead, a 2-run lead, and instead of Derek Law or Jordan Weems, we actually see Dylan Floro in that spot, setting up Hunter Harvey and Kyle Finnegan.
So I wondered if Floro would pitch the 9th. I also wondered if Floro didn't pitch the 9th, if Davey would go to the mop-up man, Tanner Rainey, for that 9th inning. And Davey did not do that. We have not talked about what happened with Rainey in the 11-4 win at the Marlins on Saturday, but in what is like the ultimate mop-up inning, Rainey struggled in that game. Bottom of the 9th, he allowed 3 runs. He gave up a 1-out triple, a 1-out RBI single, a 1-out 2-run homer, and a 2-out single. It's becoming like untenable with Rainey, and I do find it telling that Davey for the 9th inning in this game on Monday evening, you have a 5-run lead, goes to Barnes and not Rainey. And I do wonder if you're not going to pitch Rainey in that circumstance. And I understand it. I mean, that outing on Saturday was really rough, and his season has been really rough. But if you're not going to pitch Rainey in that circumstance on Monday evening, when exactly are you going to pitch him? In what circumstance do you have confidence in him right now?
Right. I think the fear of using him in this one is the moment he gets in trouble and a couple guys are on base, all of a sudden you're calling down to the bullpen and Finnegan's warming up in a game that you led by 5 runs in the ninth. And it's managing scared, but I understand why you do that given what we have seen from Rainey. I don't know what the answer here is. You find those low leverage spots for him, but if he's not even having success in those, and it's not like he's a length guy who's going to give you multiple innings when your starter gets knocked out early or something like that. There's not a lot of good answers there, and at some point they may have to face a decision there. It's been unfortunate, but as we said all along, not everybody comes back from Tommy John as good or better than they were before. And let's remember, in Tanner Rainey's case, while there were good moments that he's had in the past, this was not a truly established dominant late inning reliever prior to the injury. You add the injury to it, and the velocity has not come all the way back. And he's clearly last on the totem pole in the bullpen. And yeah, you're going to reach a point here, maybe whenever Robert Garcia is ready to come back, because you're going to give up on Jacob Barnes, who's been good for you so far. Maybe you do have to consider making a move at that point.
Yeah, and you talk about low leverage, up by 5 runs. I mean, there aren't many lower leverage spots that the Nats are going to be in, right? I mean, a 5-run lead in the ninth inning, but even then, we do not see Tanner Rainey. So next up for the Nats is a 3-game series at the reigning, defending World Series champion Texas Rangers. Game 1 Tuesday night at 8:05. Mackenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 2 Wednesday night at 8:05. Trevor Williams will be the Nats starting pitcher. And Game 3 Thursday afternoon at 2:35. Mitchell Parker will be the Nats starting pitcher. So the Nats are going from a series against the lowly Marlins to a series at the reigning, defending World Series champion Rangers. Rangers have been so far this regular season, nothing special, but obviously this is a talented team. I would think the environment in Arlington will be a bit different than the environment in Miami for these last 4 games. And we'll see. I mean, that was a rough series that the Nats had against the Dodgers at Nationals Park last week. This was a very good series that the Nats just had at the Marlins. And we'll continue to find out more about these 2024 Nats with what they do at the Rangers.
And we get Mackenzie Gore facing another good lineup. And I want to see how he handles that. We know that in that last start against LA, he was the hard luck loss, and he battled through that, but he only gave up the 1 run, which I thought was very significant against that lineup on a night when he wasn't at his best. You'd love for him to be at his best and really put together something special, but even if not, can he limit the damage and give them a chance to win? I think it's a big test for him, and I'm interested to see in person how that goes on Tuesday night. And if they can win this game, or if they can take 2 out of 3 in the series, Al, they're going to come home with a winning record. And I mean, stop and ponder that for a moment here. We're coming into the last day of April. If they can win the opener, they will have a winning record for the first time since July 1st, 2021. They would also have, I can't believe I'm even saying this, but it's true. They would have their first winning April under Davey Martinez. Okay, the last winning April this team had, Dusty Baker was the manager in 2017. Now, whether they win or lose the opener, I think it's still been a very successful month. There's a lot of reasons to be encouraged. But boy, how good would that sound to finish the month of April with a winning record and actually do something that the 2018, 2019, 2021 Nationals did not do, and actually have a winning opening month to a season.
That really is crazy. I mean, that really is one of those stats that you don't anticipate, but it does make sense when you think about it. Nats have not had a winning record at any point this regular season. Like you just said, haven't had a winning record in forever at this point. But that could all change on Tuesday night. And the Nats are beginning a lengthy stretch of series against American League teams. You have the 3-game series at Texas, then a 3-game home series against Toronto, a 2-game home series against Baltimore, a 3-game series at Boston, then a 3-game series at the White Sox, and then finally a 3-game series at a National League team in the Philadelphia Phillies. But, we all get it. The schedule now is different. You only play 13 games apiece against your division rivals. But, man, all of these games against American League teams coming up for the Nats.
It's different. It is very different. It's still trying to get used to that idea. I don't know if it's intentional. There's so many of them in a row. I do feel like we're really not seeing the NL East hardly at all here so far. But you know, new blood, a chance to see some different teams and different players that we don't normally get. I think fans have preferred this from what I can tell here early on. But it is strange. It is definitely something to get used to.
Yeah, and with the universal DH now, American League, National League has never meant less. I mean, there's no difference. And if you know, to me, you're never going to do away with the leagues and divisions. I get that there's too much tradition, too much history, but you don't even need them anymore, to be honest with you. Like, you could put everyone together at this point because it's all a big mishmash with everyone playing everyone as often as that is the case. We have a shout out to deliver. A happy 12th birthday to Wilson, who is a huge Nationals fan and a frequent listener of the Nats Chat podcast. We hear from his mom, dad, and Caroline that they especially enjoy listening to the podcast on their way to weekend baseball tournaments. And they are hoping for a CJ Abrams home run and a Nats win today. Well, you got a CJ Abrams homer and a Nats win on Monday evening. So it would be lovely to get those same two things on Tuesday night. And concludes, Mom, Dad, and Caroline, Hope Wilson, you have a great birthday. And we certainly echo that. A happy birthday to Wilson.
As the father of a 12-year-old myself, I can appreciate this very much. Good job, Wilson. Appreciate you listening to us and growing into a baseball fan and a smart baseball fan by listening to us every night, right?
We appreciate that very much. Absolutely. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can email the podcast, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We have a YouTube channel that we invite you to check out. Just search Nats Chat. Our YouTube handle is at Nats Chat Podcast. We have a website that we invite you to check out as well, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can buy a Nats Chat podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.